උපන්නදා සිට මුහුදයි දන්නේ රස්සාවට මේකයි මට දුන්නේ හිතට දුකක් නෑ තාම දැනෙන්නේ සතයි පපුවෙන්මයි කියන්නේ. As a kid who used to live close to the sea, one of the things that I always wanted was trip to the beach with my dad. And the fishing community who was living in there was so amazing. Still I can recall the songs that they sang, the things that they did, the happiness, the joy that they had. But after 2004 tsunami, pandemic, devastating 2004 tsunami and 2019 global pandemic, Sri Lankan low-income fishing community has faced numerous challenges and setbacks. So, some of the problems that they faced was the poverty, social stigma, overcrowding, limited infrastructures, and limited resources. To tackle these problems, a project has been initiated in an interior perspective, collective cohesion. The project aims to address the specific needs of the low-income fishing community by utilizing interior design as means to create sustainable and empowering living spaces, recognizing the crucial role of residential interiors in shaping individual well-being and community cohesion. So as architects and as designers, it is really important to understand how the residential spaces are being impacted to their mentality. And as designers, if we give like excessively large spaces, most of the time they tend to pick specific corners and the rest of the space most of the time will be not utilization. So, and also one of the key factors that I also noticed was in this community was most of the time they do their daily work in the exterior space and they use their residential space only to sleep. So that was amazing. And by having that knowledge, I created a modular unit which caters the main function of the space. So kitchen, toilet, and the hall was the main function that needs to activate their residential units. And by using that modular unit, I created the cluster modular unit, which has 4 housing units and facing towards each other, creating a central public space called as cluster interior. So I will be explaining about this cluster interior space in my few next slides. And as you can see, the center space is the cluster interior space and the housing units are woven around the cluster interior space. So, and one of the things that we have to understand is as designers, in the end of the day, this is going to be a residential interior project. So it needs to be maintained the simplicity because there are the people who are going to live in it. So the simplicity also wasn't needed to be maintained by using the specific techniques. So the technique number 1, the fluidity. So in terms of the fluidity, as I explained in my previous slides, the center space calls as the cluster interior space, where the boundaries between the interior and exterior space are getting blurred. So interior designing, we call these spaces as interior thresholds. And the main fluidity of the fluidity of the functions were maintained throughout the exterior and interior to interact and improve the interactions of society and community cohesion. And as architects and as designers, it is really important to understand the power of colors. So power of colors to create emotions and creating atmospheres. So in this design project, I have intentionally used warmer colors in the cluster interior spaces. And when it comes to the more cooler colors, I have used more cooler colors in housing interior spaces to maintain the seamlessness, the calm, and the tranquility in the interior space. Deliberate integration of cultural connectivity also was one of the key elements that I have been going through in the design process. As in one of the, it was incorporated with the symbols, beliefs, traditions that they had, and it's all about them. So it helped me a lot to make and foster a sense of belongingness and resonate with their mindset in a much more deeper level. In terms of the flexibility, so since I'm not, this is an illustration of the modular unit which I am proposing. So since I'm not providing any partitions in the middle of the space, so it gives the 100% flexibility to its users. And most of the time that I also noticed was, most of people, the most precious thing that they had was their poor vehicle, as in it could be a small timber boat, a trishaw, a cycle. So most of the time they tend to keep that their most precious thing in their eyesight. So that idea also was respectfully incorporated with the design by giving the possibility to take vehicles inside. And also, in terms of the partitions, as in, since I'm not proposing any partitions or separations, the residents had the option to use cupboards not only as the storage devices, as well as the partitions. And one of the things I also noticed was in this community was some of the people are not used to use washrooms directly through their hall spaces. So separate access to washrooms also was given to maintain and by respectfully understanding their mentality and their behavior. And one of the key elements that I also was done is, since this is an open plan, in interior designing what we do is, there's a technique called transparent zoning. So transparent zoning means when we are getting an open plan like this, we place main functions of the space in corners of the space. So it intangibly separate and zone out the whole space, and residents are using according to the zoning types, so on. So that was that. Design technique, the horizontals and verticals. So this technique can be considered as an extension of the color psychology. So the vertical planes are the planes that create zero eye angle in the eye view. And the horizontal planes are the planes that creates 60 or minus angles in the eye view. So most of the time in cluster interior spaces where always the public would gather around, were used, the color patches were used in vertical planes to inject the energy, the vibrancy that I wanted to pump in. And most of the time, the horizontal planes were used in interior spaces to use the color patches, to use the colors without obstructing the views. Design technique, the identity. In terms of the identity, it plays a major role in identity, as in, this project is all about the community cohesion, and it's all about the user of the space. So deliberate integration of the identity and their uniqueness also was maintained. Unique door detailing and color codes, unique colors in the facades, and unique window detailing also was done. And in terms of lighting techniques can be divided into main two categories, as in artificial lighting and the natural lighting. So in terms of natural lighting was achieved through large windows, large openings, so on. And in terms of artificial lighting in cluster interior spaces where always the public would gather around was lighted up from bottom to top to highlight the textures, materiality, and so on. And interior spaces was lighted up from top to bottom to maintain its functionality. In terms of the embracing sustainability throughout the design process, there were certain materials that I have been going through. So all fishing boats, recycled cork panels, natural clay putty also was using there, and all fishing nets also was using there. And one of the key elements that I also was noticed in the site was the choir production. Most of the time, women do choir production in their daytime. So those products also were incorporated with the design. And one of the things also was I noticed was, since this is an old fishing community, they had most of the timber, all fishing breaks, and small boats. So what I did was I used those elements as well, and I incorporated with the design as roof structures, sculptures, and as seating elements, and so on. And in terms of all fishing nets, I used as wall hangings, room dividers, ceiling installation, and also that played a role in the sensory perception as well in the kids playing area, as in each color has a different story in their fishing nets. Sri Lankan fishing nets has yellow color to explain a background story. So Indian fishing nets has a separate color to tell another story. So that idea also was incorporated with the design. Maintaining visual connections, also one of the key elements that I was going through. So maintaining visual connections in the interior spaces was done by having larger windows, openings, light wells, and such. And visual connections in cluster interior spaces was done by having large staircases, double height, triple height spaces, and so on. In terms of the composition, variations was done in a way by using color patches and shapes to create focal point where it's necessary. And also in terms of the repetition of an element was also being done to maintain the cohesive lookness and the harmonies in the community. And in terms of the alternations, even though I am using repetition of an element, the alterations, slight alternations of the patterns or also the colors also were used to remove the monotony of the design. And the problem that I was tackling was the low-income resettlements. So even though in this project we take a fishing community, low-income fishing community, the problem is not only a local problem, it goes beyond any country or any region. And I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples by Mother Teresa. Thank you.